Let me tell you something about Betsy. She's top 50 women-owned businesses in 2021 and 2020. The Daily Record, top 100 women in Maryland in 2020, and so much more. But before I get started with Betsy, I got to remind all of you about the wonderful collaboration and summit. You guys had asked for a summit and to provide a bunch of incredible thought leaders and to cultivate that self-worth through betrayal. And I did the interview with our soul sister in Australia. So we've got an international presence that's going to be happening. And we do talk about cultivating that self-love and self-worth through betrayal. I kind of took a different spin on it. And it's more about accountability and ownership, because that self-betrayal, it's self-betrayal on you and not standing up for yourself and putting up boundaries and being really clear on who you are and how you're showing up. And it was a beautiful conversation. There's incredible people and women across the board that are in this summit. And I want to invite you guys to take part, hear it, all of that good stuff. So make sure that you sign up for my newsletter. You can go to claritywithsue.com, newsletter, claritywithsue.com. If you guys also want to learn about the Craziness to Clarity online program, that's the online program, simply go to claritywithsue.com, and that's / the letter C, the number 2, and the letter C. That's Craziness to Clarity. We will be launching April 4th, and every day we're going to have 22 interviews. They're only going to be available for 48 hours. So you can also register at www.cultivatingselfworth.com and then put in my first and last name, which is Sue Lundquist. Again, that's www.cultivatingselfworth.com / Sue Lundquist. Oh my goodness, we have got some fire happening today. Betsy, welcome.
Yay.
Yay. Okay, what was that, love?
I can't wait. I'm listening to what you're already talking about, and
we're aligned. We are so aligned. Okay, I got to tell you about Betsy. She is the founder of AdNet, AccountNet Inc., LGBTE and WBE certified company. AdNet is a management consulting firm focusing on human capital management. Betsy is also a published author of Miss Crabapple and Her Magical Violin. We're going to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. And today we're going to be talking about her latest baby, which is Shake It Off Leadership. Betsy is a co-founder of Maryland LGBT Chamber of Commerce and Maryland LGBT Foundation. Betsy holds a bachelor's degree in business from Catholic University and a master's degree in Integrative Health Science from Capital University of Integrative Medicine. Betsy is also certified coach, executive coach. I can keep going and going and going, but Betsy, love, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Sue. I'm excited.
I am too, and I'm glad that you like that intro. Get people moving and going, right? Yes. Yep. We just switched over from the Gratitude Cafe to Clarity with Sue because it's all about clarity and getting
it is.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, I can do the formal bio. And as I alluded to prior to the show, I want to get to know you, your why, all of that juicy stuff, love. And so does the audience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, when you started talking about your summit and you used that word betrayal and self-betrayal, those were certainly themes what drove me to keep writing the book. That certain relationships that you thought were going to be one way, and the betrayal that felt when they didn't go. And then you're right, my own self-betrayal that I didn't intervene sooner to shift that. So, really powerful about that term betrayal. I think some of our best lessons come from that. You got to have some bad stuff happen to.
Well, I think that's really important, and leaning into the bad stuff. And the audience knows this, it's indifferent. It's all a learning experience. And I'm sure you would agree to that. It really is, but defining it as an adjective, right? Really. So talk to me about your why.
Here's the why, why I do what I do. I'm in the world of human capital professional staffing. So I have a love for people, but, it goes to making sure people are fulfilled in the workplace. It's not easy to do, the workforce out there right now is is still a toxic place. So through the work that my wonderful group of employees and myself do is we find really great people for really great workplaces and help to, and through those personalities, help to shift a workplace. We kind of create a framework to our, when I go out and I sell to my customers, we talk about the workplace. I talk about, well, if we're going to work together, here's what your expectation is, but here's what my expectation is on how I want my teams to be treated. So, we set that context right up front.
Is it true, Betsy, that it is, I don't know if the right language is, if it's more important that you realize as the person going in for the interview that you take the lead, you are interviewing them as much and
Absolutely.
Aligning those values. Professional and personal values have got to match up.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think any person that goes in for an interview, you are interviewing the potential workplace that you might be spending years. And you have to, there are times that I've had to go and educate some of my customers on the proper questions to ask, because things that were asked 10, 20 years ago, really, we can't ask now. So, you hire someone on their merit, not on your opinion or your bias.
Yes.
And that's, and we all have them, no matter how evolved we are. We have different switches inside of us that kind of were there when perhaps we started out on the planet, and we all have to do work to shift our beliefs. We really do.
Beliefs, values, all of that, not based on, and I talk a lot about this, and I think we could have this conversation too, but opinions.
Yes.
I could have a conversation about opinions.
Yeah.
There is opinions. And if we're talking about the workforce, there's a whole different conversation with that. And then there's personal opinions as well. And it's your choice. In a personal environment, I don't ask for opinions. I really don't. If it's somebody that I truly trust, that's going to not enable me.
Yes.
There's this collaborative, energetic exchange that's happening. I think the work environment, there's a different conversation with that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. And, there's a lot of mindfulness that goes into more of it needs to go into the workplace. So I have a very diverse workforce, which I so love because we all come from different backgrounds. And so there's times that there have been dicey conversations from events over the past couple of years. And sometimes we'll talk about certain things, but we seem to have unspoken ground rules of respect for one's opinion. So we may not all go in with the same opinion. I could be pretty firm on something that's occurred for me, but when I sit back and I really listen to the team and some of their thoughts, it gives me a different perspective. Sometimes it shifts my opinion. Sometimes I stay with it. But, I think when we communicate our thoughts in a really respectful way, there's more opportunity to really listen to perspective.
You're going right into culture, aren't you? Right? That leadership from a work environment, it's very important. So if you are going to be the leader of said company, even if you're an entrepreneur, and Betsy and I talked about this, you could be the 11-year-old on the playground.
That's right.
Leader.
That's right.
However, we're talking about, and it could be leadership in general terms, but we're talking about a work environment and creating that culture that says we will be respectful. We will listen to one another's opinions and take the information so we can all, because that it's taking all the information so then you can give an educated answer and make an educated choice. Go ahead, love.
Yeah. And from that's part of that really guided me to want to write this book. I have been in the workforce since the mid 1980s. So, you can do the calculations, kind of figure out how old I am or how young I am.
You're young, you are.
Right, how young I am. Yes. And so I wanted it to really write it. And I had just been writing different things over the years. And I said, this is really time. I wanted to have something concrete. And a lot of it too was to help the up and coming LGBTQ population, because there's so much strife that occurs because of who we've chosen to love, which, is really kind of crazy, because if you're talking about that wonderful word love, so you want to make something negative about that, shame on you.
I agree. Totally agree.
So I wanted to be able to teach some of the up and coming, here's what worked for me in business, here's some of the challenges I had, and whether or not you choose to be out in your business, because it's a personal choice, here's some things that you can kind of be aware of to navigate around, or if you take the step to go get your company LGBT certified, that's going to help you get closer to the front of the line in corporations when they're looking to hire new vendors. And so I'm really trying to push that conversation for business owners who are LGBTQ, because the space is opening up for us, right? Or I should say, the pie is getting bigger for opportunity.
Yes. Talk to me, because I'm not in the corporate world. I mean, I am my own corporation. I haven't been in corporate world for years. Thank you very much.
Good for you. Good for you.
Talk to me about, because when you say the LGBT community and a company that is certified, can you talk to me about that? What does that all mean? How do people do that information? All that.
So if you go to nglcc.org, which is the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, there is a certification that's recognized around the world, actually. And what you do is you go through the certification process. Typically, it's similar to if you are getting your company certified as a women-owned business or a minority-owned business. You provide a lot of paperwork to back it up, submit it, it goes for review. You hopefully are approved and get certified. This is now another box that you can check when on a corporate supplier diversity portal that shows that you're in an underserved class. So when that company is looking for new vendors and they want to go outside of the large corporations, this is another category that they are looking to attract for vendors.
Got you.
Yeah. So
similar to back then when it was women-owned businesses.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it is still, but yeah.
Still.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I have won a number of corporate contracts because of that certification. So I've been certified for 10 years now.
Nice.
Yeah. So I really highly recommend that that companies do this for themselves. So I know that in Seattle has, I think, the first and the largest LGBT Chamber of Commerce.
Yay!
You know what? I'm so sorry I can't remember the name of it, but just wonderful leadership with a really strong operating budget. And so Seattle was a trailblazer for the LGBT Chamber of Commerce.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice, Seattle. Oh, Seattle, yes. Talk to me about Shake It Off.
Well, okay.
The other baby, the book.
Yes, the book. So the title really came from the times that I played sports in high school and college. You're in the groove, something's not working, you mess up, we all do, and the coach screams from the side, shake it off. And you're telling yourself, okay, shake it off all in a nanosecond and get back on the saddle and win. Yeah. And that's what leadership is. Sometimes in a split second, we have to make a decision. Sometimes we have the luxury to take a time out, regroup, and sometimes we have to speak in the moment. So, leadership, it's a craft. You have to practice at it to keep getting better all the time. Just like in sports, if you stop, I'm also a runner. If I stop, then I've got to do some extra training to get back into the groove of how many miles I'm accustomed to doing. Leaders, if you stop learning and you think you know it all, you are heading down a bad path.
Oh, you got a trigger in me, sister. And that's on a personal
right.
level too, right? Because
yes.
I am such an advocate for constant learn. I am a constant. I won't ever stop learning. And when you find somebody that is not aligned with that, it doesn't work. Again, going back to the whole values conversation, if your values don't align personally or professionally, it's kind of a recipe for not going to work unless you can come together somewhere, somehow in a unity.
That's right.
And figure that out.
And, you know, leadership is not about a title.
No. Thank you.
No, it is about how you show up in the world. I can remember being outspoken on certain things in my youth, you know, certainly in my household with my mother. Love her.
What?
I love her, but she was probably one of my best teachers. So she needed a little bit more learning on leadership. But if I look at my family system, my dad died when I was 6. My mom was still in her early 40s, left with 5 kids between 6 and 21. So she was the chief and we were the Indians.
Gotcha.
You know, sometimes wild, sometimes we listened. So look at that. That's right.
Saying hi. You know, you're totally captivating the audience. For those in the radio world and podcast, I have Levi who's trying to get my attention.
Levi is saying, Mommy, I'm a leader too.
He is a leader. He's like, let's go. What's happening is I have my workout clothes on and he knows what's going to happen after this. So he's like, come on, let's go.
I'm ready.
Yes. So pardon us.
No problem.
I know
that right there.
Yes.
So, all right, Levi's method to get your attention or to use his voice is the paw to come real close to you. So when you use your voice, that's leadership. And it doesn't really matter how old you are, how young you are. If you're observing something and you want something, you know, like a kid, how we knew if our parents gave us if a parents gave us an allowance, we could save it and get that. You know what I mean? So sometimes I know I would take the initiative for the certain chores around the house, knowing that it would lead me to, I get this, so I could go save money for that. That's a form of leadership, as simple as it is.
Let's, if we could, Betsy, thank you for that. Let's, if we could, have a conversation, because this is big for me. I mean, this is what I do, and that's, you know, how are you showing up?
Right.
And putting into practice, literally, practice, rehearse, and first getting really clear on who that is, finding that culture, that like that personal mission statement. I call it in design the PCC, which is your personal code of conduct. And you design your personal code of conduct within a leadership environment, within the family. If you're single and you're attracting a new partnership, you've got to still get clear on who you are, how you're showing up, what your values are, so you can attract that.
Yes.
Let's have that conversation about those values and what that looks like. Could we?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So it starts with simple things. Leadership, part of leadership is modeling behavior. So in the 32 years that I've had my company, my leadership has shifted, evolved, hit the skids.
I think that's important. I want to put a pin in that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but also it's radio, and I want to put a pin in that because I think it's really important that the audience and the people listening understand it's an evolution. You have a practice of a baseline of your true values.
Yes.
You hold to those. Absolutely. However, and there's an evolution process because it's an ebb and flow, not only your life and in a professional life as well. I think it's important that people understand it's not one fits all. It's not all in the box. You have some that you keep in the box, but you can keep them.
Yes.
Betsy, I don't like boxes at all.
I don't either. Well, you know what? I love wooden boxes, but but no, not the boxes that would contain me. No. But with leadership, we are certainly have been surrounded in our world by poor leadership, and you can make up whatever you wish to make up on that. What I have the most respect for is when leaders make an error and they acknowledge it and are accountable for it. So and that's a theme, and that's part of the work culture, is that when we, including me, make mistakes, we acknowledge it and we take accountability for it. Now, if someone continues to make the same mistakes all the time and keep apologizing without a shift, then that's not okay either. That to me seems a little patronizing.
Patronizing is just lip service.
Right.
Ugh.
Right.
Yeah.
But
personal or professional, folks.
yeah. But
It
if you can be accountable, and see, and that leadership is also in our personal relationships. If you've made a mistake, be accountable for it. And sometimes things can be forgiven and sometimes they can't. But whatever the case, if you know in your soul that you've made some kind of amends, and I guess that speaks to part of my work of being sober for the past 7 years, if there, I'm going to kind of do a dotted line to that self-betrayal.
Yeah, go.
The forgiveness, that's really important. And when you're in a workplace, you have a responsibility as a leader, whatever role that you play in the company, is to model good behavior. Because if you want your team to win, if you want people to feel fulfilled and they're looking to you, you have to model it. So for instance, we have certainly been around leaders, we've seen them in companies who don't practice what they preach. Well, that can only go so long, because then there's usually some kind of terrible things brewing under the surface.
The cancer.
Yeah, and that all of a sudden will explode, and the person in charge is like, well, how'd that happen? Well, I saw it coming. You asked me for feedback. I kind of saw it coming. So even in my own organization, if something is not going in a good direction, I can kind of see it beforehand. And Sue, it's not that I have this magical power. I mean, I've owned the company for over 30 years. I know things before I see it on paper because I'm really listening in our meetings. And I find that my staff too will say, hey, I observed this. Is it possible that if this doesn't shift, we could go down this track? And I'm like, yeah.
Okay,
yes.
Right there. That is beautiful, because what I'm hearing you say, you've created a culture within your company that is allowing that type of conversation with your staff and employees, saying, hey, you know what? Something's not quite awry here. Can we unpack this a bit and have that conversation? We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Betsy, and we're going to shake it up and shake it off. And we're going to talk more about leadership. Now, audience, remember this leadership in this conversation. Again, it could be the 11-year-old on the playground. It could be you in your personal life, and it can also be you as an entrepreneur and in the professional business world. It's a great conversation. It's an important conversation. And when we come back, we're going to continue with Betsy, and we're going to be live on YouTube. So if you want, you can join us there. We'll be right back, you guys.
All right, at the break.
Thank you, Benny. Hey, YouTubers. I wish I could have this interaction question thing with the YouTubers, but I don't know how to do that just yet. I've got to figure that out. I need 5 other hands, and because I want to focus and be here, and I also want to answer questions too. Being the example and having that conversation, I have been blessed, and Betsy, with thought leaders like yourself, and being able to, for over 10 years, bringing this platform to interview incredible thought leaders of the world. And yes, there's great conversations and wisdom. And when we talk about leadership and being that example, it starts back in the home and moving forward. So having that culture within that home environment, whatever that looks like to you, having a strong defined value of how you're going to show up, how you're going to be that example, is going to lead said child into making choices,
Yes.
personally and professionally. You want to talk about how important that is?
Oh my gosh. Well, having 3 grandchildren, that is,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. That is so important. My wife and I see it with, our grandchildren range from ages 23 to 16 to 3. And the 2 older ones are female. So we're seeing how they're evolving and speaking out and really coming into their own. Because we're on the, sometimes they'll ask us different questions, or, maybe not ask question, but sometimes we insert our grandmotherly opinions and
Yes.
in a loving way, and they learn from it. So we can see how sometimes conversations, those seeds were planted and the seeds took.
Yes. It's the garden analogy. Let's just plant a little seed and see where it goes. And if it doesn't work, pull the weed. It just.
That's right.
Can I interrupt, ladies? You ready to come back?
Oh, we are. Okay, here we go.
And I fell for leader of the pack.
Love it.
Leader of the pack. All right, we are back. You guys, we're having a great, if you've missed the first half hour, well, poo-poo on you, go back and listen to it. We're having a great conversation around leadership, getting really clear on leadership. And we kind of did a little pin about, when I first came in, I was talking about that self-betrayal and cultivating that. And then Betsy kind of swung us back around, because there is quite a bit in our life where we do have self-betrayal and we diminish ourselves. And then we were talking about what leadership means, who you are and how you're showing up in the world, and how that parlays not only in personal life, but again, going into the professional and executive realm. Whether you're an 11-year-old on the playground, whether you're a grandparent, whether you're a parent, or an executive, across the board, that leadership role, you first and foremost have to get clear on who you are,
right,
what your values are, and creating that culture not only within your home, but also moving forward into a professional environment. And during the break in YouTube, we just started talking about that. Do you want to continue? It was grandchildren.
Yes.
And yes. Got you, girl. I got you.
I know, right?
At least this time I got you.
Thank you. Well, and I'm grateful because my daughter too has instilled certain learnings for the girls, and they have just really, it's magnificent to watch them come into their own and speak up for themselves and speak out. And
having a safe space to have that, to be able to share my voice, my fear, my doubt, or my I'm going to just lose my shiitake moment.
That's right. That's
yeah.
right. That's right. And part two, also with leadership, is some of the chapters I talked about in the book are related to burnout, are related to grief. Because these are real things that we experience, whether or not we're in the corporate space.
Yes.
And we need to give ourselves more permission to say, I don't feel myself, whatever that is, or, grief. Grief is a natural occurrence. It is a manifestation of one's love for another who we lost. Yet in companies, what do we give it? 3 days off, 5 days off. Come on back and jump back into the soup. And I'm a small business. I can't afford to give someone unlimited time for grief, for bereavement. Yet what we do is we really watch out for each other when there's loss. We acknowledge it. We don't spend concentrated time on it, because if you always put a magnifying glass on that pain, then you can't move forward.
Right.
But we acknowledge it, and the space is there for, if there's anything you need, if you need a breather, if you need to start later, if you're having one of those days, and being virtual, it's like, look, in the middle of the day, if you want to go take a nap, you want to go have an emotional moment, go.
Yes. Oh, I encourage emotional moments. Go throw a tantrum.
That's right.
Let it
Whatever
out.
you need, that's right.
Yeah.
Whatever you need. So, leadership on the bigger scale, if you're leading an organization or a team, is you really have to be mindful of life events that occur for people and also that occur for you as the leader. Because if we're not taking care of self, how can we expect our team? Because again, your team is looking to you for the leadership, for the vision, for the behaviors. So we have, as a leader, have to be extra mindful. And you know what? We chose to be in that leadership role. So that's part of our job.
Yep. Accountability and responsibility.
That's
So
right.
what Betsy, and again, I want to remind all of the audience, her latest book, Shake It Off. And where can they get a hold of this?
You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And if you go to my website, betsycerulo.com, there is also a free download for a mini workbook that has some exercises that are in the book. And, I'm one for lists. I'm one for how many by when. There's a couple self-reflection exercises in that workbook. So go download it for free, and then you can kind of get a flavor for the book. And if you like it, you can download the book version or the audio version.
All right, love,
that I
repeat, because
narrate.
I don't have that link. Repeat that so they get it.
BetsyCerulo.com, BetsyCerulo.com.
.com, but is there a special / for the download?
No,
It's
you'll
just
see
right
it.
there.
You'll
Oh,
see it.
okay. Okay.
And
I
you
just
can-
wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And you can buy Shake It Off Leadership or my children's book, Miss Crabapple.
Miss Crabapple. That's so cute. Okay. Now, wait a minute. There was a question I was going to ask you about leadership. It'll come back to me. That's okay.
Well, maybe it is. Or some days, do I act like a Miss Crabapple as I'm being a leader? Yes. And I acknowledge it. Sometimes if I'm having a bad day, I'll tell my team at one of our meetings, like, I just want to tell you I'm not quite myself today. And if I'm on the quiet side, I'm just working through it.
Ooh, that's a really good conversation to have. And I say that because you have provided a culture and a space for vulnerability and honesty.
Yes.
Not enabling,
Nope.
not the drama. Oh my God, let me hold it. Not
Right.
that. It's, hey,
Right.
if I'm quiet, I'm quiet. I'm just working through my stuff. Thank you for giving me
Right.
that space. Let's keep moving. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with boundaries, because
With
that's
boundaries.
another thing that we work on in the organization. Boundaries. You have to have healthy boundaries.
Talk to me
Not-
about that in a professional environment. Talk to me about
So-
how you do that culture in.
Sometimes the acronym TMI, we don't have to know all of the information that's going on. Keep something to yourself. Now, obviously, if you're in a real struggle and you need to sit down and have a conversation, we encourage that. We encourage the one-on-one. So, whoever your direct manager is or myself, if you need to have that conversation to help yourself move past something, absolutely. There comes a point where you have to be mindful of where the professional and the personal
Yes.
boundaries. You have to have that in an organization, because if we're always talking about all of our feelings, we lose our objectivity. And in business, you have to most time stick to the facts, man, but you can stick to the facts with love. You can, and compassion.
Give me a script. Walk me through that conversation, because I think that's a really important. I feel it with the audience. They're like, well, then how do I, as a leader, set that boundary? And I call it saying a respectful no, nurturing and loving not only myself, but the other person, right?
Yes. So if there's an employee, and we have contractors that work across the country as well. So we have our corporate staff, we have our contract staff. And if we have people that are in trouble, and we have had that through COVID, we've had to do some
Define trouble. What do you mean? Like
mental,
okay.
yeah, where they would kind of disappear, or maybe behaviors just seemed unusual or edgy. we don't call people out in a group. We'll have a one-on-one conversation to really find out what's going on.
No
What's
assumptions.
underneath this? Yes, no
So-
assumptions.
What I see, Betsy, with you is you guys stay in that state of awareness, not judgment, not shaming, just say,
Right.
something's a little aloof here.
Right.
We need to check into it. Similar to you having your business for 30 years and having that
Yes.
culture where people can come and talk to you. I love it. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Beth.
So
Yeah.
if we have a deadline, the deadline is the deadline is the deadline. You have deadlines in business. So if a customer is expecting something and we've missed the deadline, we go back and do, okay, so we have to quickly correct it. But so then we go back and say, okay, now that we fixed it, we met the deadline, let's go back and unpack what occurred. So we'll call it a postmortem.
Okay. Or an audit. Is audit the same thing? Okay.
You can use audit. Let's go back and talk through the facts, what occurred. Okay. And then sometimes from that, we'll see that perhaps it was a training issue. There was a non-clarity issue for the correct deadline, or something was occurring for the individual, whether the individual is the person is on AdNet staff or the contractor that we're representing. So we kind of evaluate all those pieces to determine, okay, our work is in human capital, human beings, we're unpredictable. What can we do going forward? Should we see that? How can we be proactive to make sure, the feelings or the emotions can still occur, but we can still meet the deadline? Or do we have to go and renegotiate the deadline before it passes? That's always an option.
Right.
So it comes down to communication, but not enabling. When you said it, not enabling, because if enabling is not a good thing, it is not. Nobody learns when you enable.
No. Okay. Talk to me about the next generations coming in. We've got that conversation too. They've, a lot of stuff. And this is a sticky conversation, guys. And I say this with love. And I know that Betsy, the whole intention of this is new perspective, new thoughts, new ideas.
Yes.
And we're just sharing information. It's never to shame or to have any of that. No. And if you're feeling that, then there's something in you that you need to address, because we're not providing that shame to you or whatever that guilt is. So that enabling and the generations that are coming into the workforce, and they've got a different kind of mindset. Can we have that conversation and how we overcome that?
Yes.
We can give it an adjective if you like.
I'm not sure what to call it, but enabling, sometimes it feels good. Sometimes like if my wife says, you don't have to go run. Okay. Because I've run half marathons. I want to run another race over the next year. So, there's some certain steps I have to take. So if I would rather have Oreos, a half a sleeve of Oreo cookies than go run, not such a good thing. But see, sometimes the enabling might feel good, but in the end, like even with the up and coming generation, who's so brilliant, the way the younger generation has such a grasp on technology is amazing to me.
Blows my mind.
Yes. The fact that they're so in tuned to the environment that they speak out about gun control, about politics, about
the LGBT community, all of that,
the LGBTQ
all of it.
community, and their allies, they're amazing allies. I mean, that generation is, I am so proud of them, because if we've got a shot at peace and for major shifts in this country is that generation. And I am just so proud of them. So, but sometimes there's been something that's been infused into the culture that we you have to acknowledge for everything. Well, okay, so we can lose on the playing field. And why are we giving, sometimes when you hear everybody gets trophy, every kid gets trophy. Okay, well, maybe there's a different way to acknowledge the magnificence of loss that can be a teachable moment on, okay, what can you do different? Not just, go out and be better. What can you do different? Or maybe you have to flex that muscle a little differently versus you're a failure. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
So getting a big trophy, driving a fancy sports car, dressing a certain way. Those are these tangible trophies. But do they necessarily mean you're a winner? No. I'm sure, Sue, how many people do we know between us who look like everything is perfect, but disaster?
Oh, I didn't walk like that at all. I never have done that.
Oh yeah. Come on. I have had some of my toughest times. I have had to dress perfectly and show up at a customer and smile like, the world was smiling with me. But when I get into the car, I was like, holy crap.
Yep.
But that's part of what you have to do. But for this generation, my wish for them is that they're really observing, which I think they are. They're observing the behaviors of the baby boomers, and some of them happen to reside in the area of Washington D.C. And I won't. There you go. So if they can just see that, I don't want to be like that, or I can choose differently.
Ooh, that's really important. There has been this overlaying energy frequency thing that has been happening through my interviews. Big fat permission slip. Yeah. Just because it was done that way doesn't mean it has to be done that way again.
Right.
If you've got some creative, respectful, kind, compassionate manner, way, culture, value to handle said situation, do it, and without enabling.
That's right. Because, how many times I can see in my younger professional years where I'd have somebody who was older say, well, that's how we always did it.
Oh.
And I think to myself,
that doesn't mean
and I would
right.
know it's like that wasn't empowering, but because that was someone who felt safer in the old ways. And so now that I happen to be one of those older people, if I feel that term, that's how we used to do it, is anywhere coming near to pass through my mouth, I stop myself. Like, nope, gotta make space for other ways of thinking. And the younger generations are amazing because they also have more permission to be themselves, even though, bullying, all of that is atrocious, or maybe now it was always there and we're just noticing it and calling it out more.
Spotlight, yeah.
The younger generation, there's so many more things are more accepting. Like when I see now kids who are going to proms in same-sex relationships, and I think to myself, wow.
That's not where
I was. Yeah, that's not where I was in high school. But I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's really incredible. Too bad my generation didn't have the guts to do it, or
yeah, but wait a minute,
underground.
But you guys set the stage. There's always the light of the fire, right?
Yes,
it really is.
And even the generations that were ahead of me, what they did for me to be able to be who I am today, they were so courageous. I don't really think of myself as being that, because what they had to walk through so I could be me.
It's all relative, right? Wow. It's relative, but my hat's off to you too, sister. I mean, you have changed lives. You've stepped in the rink many times in being that leader.
Yes.
So
and I'll always
that love and appreciation.
Thank you.
It. Yes. Now, to appreciation, I did it was a talk on gratitude a few years ago, and it was for an executive kind of environment. And during my research, I found, and this was a few years ago, the numbers may have changed, And I go into, again, the conversation around the culture and the values and being a leader and talking about that and the value and the importance of gratitude and appreciation.
Yes.
I think it was 77 or 75% of employees
Mhm.
do not feel appreciated, don't
Yes.
have, 75%.
A lot.
Betsy.
That's a lot.
That is a bottom line hit, right?
Yeah.
So if you as a leader, whether you're an entrepreneur or a parent, or
Mhm.
and if we're talking specifically in a corporate environment,
Mm-hmm.
I would highly suggest, not even an opinion, just a suggestion, but it's
Yeah.
pretty strong,
Yeah.
really integrating appreciation and gratitude
Yeah.
into that culture.
Yep.
Because I know, and safety too, because I know when I feel safe and I can feel heard and I feel appreciated, I know that I'm going to perform. I'm going to show up so
Yes.
much more, right?
Yes.
At more.
Yes. And, you know, in our weekly staff meetings, we start off with, you know, your wins, what's a challenge, what are you grateful for?
Yes.
So
Yes.
every week we say it, and actually we've been starting to talk about it more. So I send out, I have a list called Tidbits of Joy. And if you go to my company website, that is adnetp3.com, there's a section for Tidbits of Joy. And I started it through COVID because, you know, when we were stuck home and I thought, oh my God, I've got to inspire myself here. So I started to write. So as I was finishing up writing Shake It Off Leadership, I was also writing, and I was trying to do that to communicate with my customers and my contract employees, since I couldn't see them.
Yes.
So I would write something, I'd get inspired by some kind of theme and I would write it. And so last week I was just flipping around YouTube because I always like music in the background when I'm working. And there was something about Oprah Winfrey's gratitude speech, and it's on YouTube. It's about 12 minutes long. I started to listen to it, and she had other people giving some quotes on gratitude. And I thought, this is what I needed that day. So I sent her.
Of course it showed up for you.
Yeah. So I sent out my tidbits of joy around gratitude. So we just kind of kept talking about it in the workplace, and I started to get responses back from people on what they were grateful for.
Oh.
So we want to say what we're grateful for. Sometimes we just need to be asked. You know,
this is a really important conversation. I feel that, and mind you, gratitude, and my company was I'm Thankful Network, I'm Thankful LLC, the Gratitude Cafe. I mean, I have been immersed. You teach what you most need to learn within the gratitude. So that's a huge value for me in that gratitude and appreciation. I think the conversation should be had around being very particular about said appreciation and said gratitude.
Yes.
You know, I really witnessed you today, and I just want to appreciate how you showed up. I know it wasn't easy, but I admire your strength and your courage, and I'm so thankful that you modeled that for me.
Yeah.
That's way better than, you know what, great job. Awesome. Woohoo.
Oh yeah. No,
Feel the difference.
There is. And we acknowledge each other, because I can tell you over the years that me as the CEO felt very lonely and very unappreciated at different times. So, you know, over the past 10 years, when I actually exited a toxic business relationship and took back my company 100%, I really shifted the culture to really where I needed to head. And my everyday journaling was a mantra on top on what I wanted to see for my company, because we were going through really challenging times coming out of the recession. I'd write 5
So sustaining
things.
above the line, keeping that frequency above the line.
This is what I wanted. I declared what I wanted. I'd write 5 things that I was grateful for, which I still do most every day. And I would kind of do a free flow journaling. I'd get out my gunk. You know, if I was mad at something, if I was mad at myself, I would get it out before I went to the office. So if you do a lot of reading now, people in the workplace are really wanting to be acknowledged and to feel appreciated. And that tends to be more so than more money. Because gratitude
it's
and
a
love is
genuine and
priceless.
authentic. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I talked over you. Please. What was that?
Gratitude and love is priceless.
Feeling heard, understood. I mean, that's so many conversations around that, and the basis of men or women. I want to feel heard.
Yeah, I want to be seen.
I want to be seen for who
Yes.
I am. I want that safety to be able to provide that. Because, even though if I'm standing in the rink and I don't know what I look like, and that's okay. And I'm working through it. I don't want to be shamed,
Right.
guilted through any of that. Just hold the space. Don't enable,
right.
don't bring in the drama, right?
Nope. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Good conversation. Oh,
Absolutely.
so good.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm
Betsy,
ready for my day.
Yay! Remember to go get Betsy's book, Shake It Off. You can find it at all retailers and, of course, her website. I will have all of her information in all the show notes, on my social media, all of that good, juicy stuff. Betsy, I want you to receive this. Thank you. I said this earlier, but thank you so much for your leadership, showing up, being that example to all of these people, whether it's your direct employment, your contractors, you and me having this conversation, your grandchildren. Thank you so much. Your is it LGBTQ community? Yeah.
Yes.
All of that. So keep shining your light, sweetheart. Congratulations on Shake It Off book. Thank you so much for joining us here at Clarity with Sue. I totally appreciate you and your conversation, your language, and your energy and your authenticity. So thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you, Sue. I really appreciate today.
You're
welcome.
And you. Oh, thank you so much. All right, you guys. Thank you for listening. Give us a 5-star review on the iTunes podcast world. If you have any other questions, you want more things to learn and educate, of course, you know how to get a hold of me, claritywithsue.com. Send me a note and sign up for the newsletter. Until then, we'll see you next week. And until then, each of you are